You had me down, but 21 disease. Smile of you, yes, on your lip. Shake my fist, knock on wood. I've got it bad, and I got it good. Doctor, doctor, give me the news. I've got a bad case of loving you. No pill's gonna cure my ear. I got a bad case of loving you.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646. Friday mornings is something different on 89.5 FM. It's JP's Talk About Town.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Oh, I'm back. I'm back, and I'm not on. I'm hooked on. Sorry. Well, welcome back to Chamber Chatter. I was actually looking at the phone number because we thought we had a caller. We want people to call in. We're having a lively discussion this morning with Michelle Urban from Bay State Noble Hospital, Chief Nursing Officer, and Chief Administrative Officer. So I want to keep the conversation going because I think this is a very important question, and we want to educate people so that they can make a conscientious vote, whatever their opinion is. But we're hoping to sway some people, right? Yes. We want to sway them to vote no on question 1, primarily because the chamber has taken a position in support of Bay State Noble Hospital and Bay State Health Systems. Yep. So we were. Before the break, we were talking a little bit about, Pete was asking some really good questions, about the legislature, how they get involved or didn't get involved, let's say, because there was no negotiation. Were you involved with those negotiations at all, Michelle? The opportunity to negotiate at the state level?
In the spring of this year, the legislators had an open forum where both sides, the yes and the no, could come and present cases.
Okay.
And so I did not present actually, but I was in the room. And,
nice.
And every single presenter was asked a specific question. That question was, is there some way that we could negotiate this? Is there something that we could do in order not to get to the point where we take it to ballot? And there were some very interesting responses from the no folks saying, yes, I think we can. I think we can sit down with nurses. We can talk about how we get to meet their needs to improve patient care. On the M&A side, I heard resoundingly no. Just no.
They wouldn't even negotiate?
No. They've been looking at this and working at this for over 20 years, and they were not willing to even entertain the idea of negotiating at this topic.
So you mentioned patient care. I'd like to go back to that a little bit because, and I'm sure we've all been patients at one point or another in our lifetime. And we know California has this in their state. I think it's been quite a while. It's 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes.
And again, I think it's been publicized. There's been no change in patient outcomes. Am I saying that correctly, or do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Massachusetts, first of all, healthcare is highly regulated.
Okay.
We report to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services monthly with quality indicators, something that we call patient safety indicators. Those are things that nurses absolutely have input in to improve quality of patient care. And so what we do is we look at the outcomes of Massachusetts, which we have great healthcare in Massachusetts.
We do, yes.
And we compare it to, because it's the only thing we have to compare it to California. And Massachusetts far surpasses California in many. There's 17 behavioral health quality indicators.
Wow.
And we surpass on 15 of them. The other 2, we are equal to them. Those patient safety indicators, there's 90 elements of those. Catheter-associated urinary tract infections, central line bloodstream infections, surgical site infections, and Massachusetts surpasses California in those. So from a quality person, and quality departments have always reported to me in the facilities that I've been working in, I find it difficult to say I want to go to a system where the quality is less than what we have presently in the state of Massachusetts.
And that's really important data.
That's very important data.
And that message needs to get out there, I think. And I'm sure there'll be a huge push from now until, November 6th. And we want to encourage everyone to get out and vote. I do want to share with you that the chamber, we had a grand bargain, so-called. I call it the not so grand bargain. Lunch and learn with 3 other chambers last week. And Rick Lord spoke from AIM, the president and CEO of Associated Industries of Massachusetts. I'm assuming you know who he is. And I asked the question at the very end of his presentation when he opened it up to Q&A. I wanted him to comment. I wanted him to comment on, should we really be legislating through ballot questions? So it is in our state constitution that we can. And I was really kind of intrigued by his response. So do you have an opinion? Because to me, the bigger picture here is, okay, we have this constitutional right. People can get ballot, grassroots organizations. I mean, this can affect policy, public policy, and create legislation and laws. And I find this very fascinating. But do you have an opinion, because of what you're dealing with right now with the whole nurse ratio ballot question? Do you have an opinion about this? Should this be the way we should be governing?
I love the fact that we have the right to be able to do that, but I don't believe that, and I say this with all the respect that I can, that the general public understands what this really means.
Right.
I would not tell a firefighter what size hose or pounds of water that they should use to fight a fire. I definitely would not tell a police officer what gauge bullet maybe to use in his gun if he was going to be going out, or the number of police officers per square mile of area that they would treat. And so I have issues about the fact that the care that we give to patients comes from years of best practice, research, study.
Yep.
Nurses are doctors of nursing science now. It's a very scientific. The profession has really advanced over the years. And so I guess part of me is a little bit... it's a little difficult for me to say that maybe my next door neighbor would be deciding how we care for patients in a hospital.
I find this interesting too, because as the chamber executive, we represent the business community. I can't imagine government saying to manufacturing companies, you know what, you can only have 5 plant. You can only have, how many plant supervisors are you entitled to have? I mean, I don't understand why government should be telling companies their staffing, how many staff they can have. I just don't understand that.
That's called communism or socialism.
Right?
That's what it is. That's the definition of a government telling every industry what they can do and they can't do.
So I have a problem with that. Yes. So, and I would think
I agree with you.
And I think the business community in itself should be, in uproar about this, because just because it's not that we want to criticize nurses, we value nurses and their technical skill, but I think to me it's a bigger picture, in a sense that government should not be telling companies your staff requirements.
Wait a minute,
to me that's wrong. It's
you become libertarian? That's libertarian.
Right?
That's the definition of libertarian.
Yeah, so, I have a problem with that,
And I think the other side of that is at face value, it may sound like a good thing, and I know it's so confusing for the general public because I think the public likes nurses, and they really do, and they value what we do. But I think that the side that isn't understood is the fact that it will restrict the amount of care that some patients really can receive. The wait times in our emergency rooms are going to be staggering. And if you really think of it, Bay State Noble is part of a health system with Bay State Health.
Yes.
If our emergency rooms are backed up, that it will funnel back up to the medical center as well. And so a community hospital has a purpose in the health system. We treat those patients that we can, keep them local, and those that we can't, we have avenues to get to where they need to be to get the care that they need in the acute academic medical center. That system is going to go away because you're going to be backlogged.
So I know we focus this conversation obviously because of our local community hospitals, which play such a vital role in our communities, whether it's up in Franklin Medical, Bay State Noble here in Westfield. Have you heard from the major players in Eastern Mass, like your Leahy clinics? Have you heard from your I don't know the hospitals. I've never been out there to the hospitals, but Boston Medical Center. Any information from those folks of how they're gonna feel about this? Are they worried? Do you know offhand?
I think that every hospital in the state of Massachusetts is supporting the vote no.
Every
hospital in the state of Massachusetts is supporting the vote no.
So I received an email. Like I said, the chamber is supporting this push to vote no on the ballot, question number 1. And he, this Anthony, I'm going to say his name wrong, Abdulahad, he's with the coalition. Yes. And he shared some information with me about, the chamber, we're going to keep putting some information about this as well, but the Massachusetts Health Policy Commission rolled out their analysis of question 1, revealing the ballot question could cost Massachusetts more than $900 million per year. Wouldn't that bankrupt our healthcare? I don't understand these numbers. To me, that's just staggering. I don't know what that means.
Well, and the caveat to that is that excluded the cost for emergency rooms. So that was excluding the cost that emergency rooms are going to have to incur to meet the demand. It's an enormous number. Absolutely.
And then he goes on to write, says the impact would be greatest at community hospitals and psychiatric and labor and delivery units.
So in a behavioral health unit, we have to think about this, that any patient who's admitted to an acute inpatient behavioral health unit is at risk of hurting themselves or others. That is the biggest criteria.
So you're talking about maybe potential suicide, people that are dealing with suicide, severe depression.
Yeah, exactly. And so in order to be admitted, you have to be at risk of hurting yourself or others. And so at Bay State Noble, 47% of our patients may not receive care. 300 patients really could be out there without receiving the care that they need.
And that's going to impact the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, our behavioral health unit has a very high occupancy rate, and so we have patients waiting. Right now, behavioral health is crisis in the country.
It is.
And we have patients waiting in our emergency room right now for care and trying to find the appropriate location for patients. Geriatric psych units, adolescent behavioral health units, substance units. And we've spoken to the police officers in the in the town of Westfield who happen to say, if you don't have a location for them, in order to keep some patients and the community safe, we may need to keep patients in our jail. And that, to me, is not what's best for patient care.
No.
This is an illness. This isn't...
Right, correct.
Right. And so I'm concerned about that as well.
Wow. This is going to have a severe impact.
And I think part of it also is that the way the ballot initiative is written, it talks about at all times in all facilities. So let's think about this, too, at all times. If the Marathon bombing event happened, we had an explosion, if there was a school bus accident, if there was a derailment of a train. I mean, hospitals do drills for mass casualty.
I didn't even think about catastrophic
I didn't
even think about that. Oh, my Lord.
So we drilled, and not that long ago about, and the scenario was that there was a truck on Route 20 who had chemical, and it was a chemical spill, and patients in the area were brought to our emergency room. And so we drill to deal with sudden influxes of volumes of patients. We do that all the time. And that would not be something that would be taken into consideration.
Wow.
So think about the Boston Marathon event. I mean, God forsake that that happens again.
Right.
I mean, so we drill and prepare for those types of things, which this...
I didn't even think about an emergency situation.
I mean, there was an explosion not that long ago in the area. There could be a school bus accident.
Yes.
And those things would not interfere. I'm going to tell you that that's going to be an ethical dilemma to have things like that happen for the caregivers in the emergency room.
All right, so you mentioned the word ethical dilemma. Mm-hmm. So I'm familiar with a Hippocratic Oath. Mm-hmm. Is that for doctors only?
Well, I mean, nurses have a code of ethics as well, and we treat patients. That's what we're here.
My mouse froze.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we do have an oath to care for our patients. That's what we're here to do. And so as I have been out educating staff throughout the hospital, emergency room nurses and nurses throughout the hospital who realized that we would treat fewer patients because we can't find the nurses to meet these mandates, they realized that our patients are not going to be treated. We may have to delay surgeries. I mean, we will close beds until we can find these nurses to work in hospitals. The other thing that's also interesting to me is the fact that not only are patients a number in this numbers game, but nurses are as well. And nurses come with varying degrees of expertise. A nurse graduates from nursing school, sits for her boards or his boards, passes, and then comes to an acute setting. It takes anywhere from 2 months to a year to be proficient in what they do. My dad was admitted to a hospital several months ago. I come up to the nurse, I ask questions, and she goes, "I'm new, I don't know the answer."
Wow.
That's real.
Wow.
Think about, and so those nurses who are retiring are the most experienced nurses. And so, I mean, I have to tell you that when I first worked oncology, I was a subject expert in my oncology world. Then I transferred into acute care, and it took me months to become that proficient in that subspecialty. And so a nurse is not a nurse, not a nurse.
No.
A nurse coming from a non-acute setting, a physician's office, the school nurse, the home health nurse who comes into the hospital is a nurse, yes, is a registered nurse, but needs to be trained to be able to give the level of care in an acute setting.
Great. Break, or are we good?
Sure.
Okay. We'll be right back. Chamber Chatter.
Shining happy people laughing.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com. Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
He rules the roost on Thursday from 6 till 10. It's Patrick Berry.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Are we back, Pete?
Yes, we're back.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back to Chamber Chatter.
I always do the ID last.
Yay. So I'm Kate Phelan, the Executive Director of the Greater Westfield Chamber. I do want to just make one quick announcement about our annual meeting, which is coming up on November 28th. We did have to change the date, so we scheduled it the night
There's too many things going on.
Well, it was inadvertently scheduled the night before Thanksgiving because the way the Thursdays fall on Thanksgiving, and we thought, oh, that's not Thanksgiving that early, but it was. So now it's November 28th, and
Thanksgiving's early this year.
22nd.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it's early. So it's at Toccoa Country Club, and we are honoring our 3 award winners: Business of the Year, 2018 Business of the Year, Armbrook Village. Our 2018 Nonprofit of the Year is the Westfield Athenaeum. And our 2018 Lifetime Achievement Award is going to Ann Lentini from Domus Incorporated.
Those are all good picks.
They are absolutely fabulous picks, and thanks to my nominating committee, they did a nice job. It's never an easy decision every year. So I want to get back to our guest, Michelle Urban from Bay State Noble Hospital, and we're focusing pretty much the show on the ballot question number 1, which is fine. And you have an upcoming little event internally at the hospital to help educate, I guess.
It's something that we call a thunderclap. And what we do is the health system chooses areas of focus, and we interview and ask for statements from nurses, doctors, healthcare providers. And there will be a thunderclap released today at 10 a.m. having to do with the viewpoint of emergency room care providers, doctors, nurses, technicians,
okay,
to talk about how they believe this ballot initiative will affect them.
So the ED?
Yes.
Okay. And then that's just at Bay State Noble, or is it also the whole?
It's at Bay State Health.
Bay State Health
with
so all their ED departments. Okay, so you're talking
outreaches throughout the community as well.
So you're talking about Franklin, Bay State Franklin, Bay State Health Systems itself.
The health system, yes.
Okay.
So Noble has provided a physician and a nurse's statement with regards to how they believe and what their feelings are with regards to this ballot initiative. Awesome. Because I think people in the community want to hear it from nurses and from doctors and from those who would be treating them in those areas of choice for the thunderclap.
Right. So off. I don't know, what would we say? We can't say. I guess when we were on the break, we were talking a little bit about a public health crisis,
right,
and how this would impact the ratio. So
that would be the only waiver.
That is the only waiver in the law as it's written that would deviate from the nurse-patient ratios that would be mandated by the government, is if there was a public health emergency.
Right, and the
is
way
that by community? Is that like so?
public health emergency can be declared by the local health director. But in some of the scenarios that she provided, you have to find the public health director, get them to make the declaration. Who needs to sign off on it? How fast does it go? Probably not fast enough to deal with a crisis or acute situation.
Okay, so it could be a serious situation. Right. It could be a problem.
It is a problem.
Yeah.
But it is the only documented in that bill that would deviate from.
So can it go... this is something I don't know, so I'm just asking this question.
We should ask Joe before he left. Joe was here this morning. Joe Rouse was here from 7 to 8, yeah. Oh,
I didn't know that. But like, so can the CDC, can it go to a federal level? Can that override?
There could be a statewide public health emergency that would be affected throughout the state. Yes. Okay. And so think about that. So that would be every hospital in the state of Massachusetts would then be able to care for the influx of patients associated with that public health emergency.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I guess, hopefully we won't have to get to that situation. True. We're going to think positive.
If they had built more flexibility into this bill, I think it would be a little bit better. But it's very kind of a black and white situation.
Yeah. Really rigid.
Yeah.
And patient care is going to suffer. Yeah.
Well, and I think as we look at the state of Massachusetts, it's not one zone or one area or one region or academic medical centers or just communities, hospitals. It's every hospital in the state. And so technically January 1, 2019, this thing gets put into law. And it could truly be an emergency in the state of Massachusetts for healthcare.
Right.
Because I'm going to tell you from November 6th until January 1st, what's it like 30 business days that we would have to be able to recruit, hire, and train and get the number of nurses in place in order to meet the needs, the demands as we enter into a flu season to be up and running.
And to be honest, I'm sure you're trying to dot all your I's and cross your T's if this happens, but how much can you can do some planning and get some things in place, but it also could be, it could be crunch. This could be a problem for the hospitals to get everything lined up, right, Michelle?
That is absolutely true. So I have meetings set up with the nursing leaders from each of our departments, inpatient departments, to say, where do we believe our gaps will be with what we have budgeted for nursing now and what we might need as a result of this government-mandated nurse-patient ratios. And then we're thinking outside the box for those things that are not direct caregivers, nurses who are in the hospital that don't do direct patient care. Will we need to pull them back from what it is that they're doing to do direct patient care so that we can meet demands?
Like, what do you mean?
So we have nurses who don't do direct patient care. We have educators. We have case managers. We have nurses in our quality department. And I'm not saying that we're going to be eliminating them, but we have to take into consideration all of those things.
Now, do you use LPNs?
No, we do not.
Oh, there are no. They still are in some acute facilities, correct? In some. LPNs are still used,
not to my knowledge in acute settings.
Oh, not in acute settings. Okay, that's something I didn't know.
So the other things to think about is there are some processes that we in healthcare put in place to meet that acute change in condition, something called a rapid response team, a stroke team, a STEMI team. And what that does is an ambulance could bring a patient in who they think is having an evolving stroke. Yep. We get notified and we call a stroke team. A team of our staff is waiting there to care for that patient, nurses, doctors, because it's time sensitive.
Yep.
And that will need to go away because I'm not going to be able to pull a nurse from somewhere else to go to that team. We have the patients who unfortunately have strokes on an inpatient unit, and that as well. We have rapid response teams throughout all of healthcare, and what that means is it's a rapid rescue for something other than a cardiac or respiratory arrest.
I don't even know how you're going to manage that. I don't even know how this is going to.
It's very challenging.
The staffing, how a hospital is going to deal with the staffing because it changes by the second.
So right now, a critical care nurse would have a lesser patient assignment, knowing that he or she is assigned to the rapid response team. A rapid response team is called. It can be called by a family member. It can be called by any one of the healthcare It could be called by anybody. The team is called to a particular location. The nurse leaves a critical care area. Her patient or his patients are assigned to their coworkers. They run to the room and they rescue this patient from whatever's happening. It could happen from not even an inpatient department. It could be someone who has an episode of low blood sugar and has an event in the cafeteria, or someone who's having blood work drawn and who passes out, or someone who has some medical emergency in a hospital that's not being treated as an inpatient. And so as a result of that, those type of systems in place would have to go away, because we will not be able to predict. I'm going to tell you that last week I heard 4 of those type of team responses called.
Wow.
2 rapid response teams in an hour, a stroke team, and a STEMI team. And you think to yourself, oh my heavens, what would we do?
What would you do?
And so we are planning for those what do we do type things to the best of our ability to be able to do that.
Now, how does this impact your relationship with the local assisted living, not assisted, I call them nursing homes. They don't use that term anymore, but those facilities. Are they impacted by this, or just acute care facilities? It's acute care facilities.
Okay. Acute care hospitals.
But you have relationships with these facilities where they need to bring patients.
Right, absolutely.
So again, it could impact them as well.
I mean,
indirectly.
No one really has the ability to go to the front of the line. Okay?
Well put. Yep.
So it really all depends on what is happening in the body of, let's say, the emergency room. I could have 5 patients in the emergency room, and they could all be cuts and maybe a suture and a sprained ankle or something.
Acuity's out the window.
Out the window. It's just a numbers-based event.
So no matter what you have, it doesn't matter anymore. You could be having...
And I will tell you that from nurses who work in those acute settings, who see someone coming in with maybe a trauma or a cardiac event, who know that their patient who needed to have sutures or whatever the situation is, knowing that person could be having a heart attack out there is really difficult. It is really difficult. And to be honest with you, I've heard nurses say that they may not choose to practice in the state if that's how practice is going to be set up, and that they may go and seek licensure in other states, because that is a real ethical dilemma for them. I hope that doesn't happen, because there's a nursing shortage right now. But I mean, it could very well happen.
Wow, this is a tough one.
It is. I think it's a healthcare emergency for the state of Massachusetts. I really do, because, like I said, it's not just Western Mass, it's the whole entire state. I worked in Boston for about a year doing some consulting, and so we in Western Mass may say, but there's a lot of hospitals up in Boston, but there's a lot of patients as well. And those hospitals draw nurses from Rhode Island and New Hampshire and Maine to come into Boston to work, and so they're going to be in the same position.
Situation. Wow.
The same situation.
Interesting. Well, November 6th is,
30 days or so away.
Fast approaching, and we really want to encourage everyone to get out and vote. I do have 2 signs left at the chamber office that says vote no.
Lawn signs?
Yeah.
Those are a big commodity. People are coming to my office all the time asking me for them.
All right, so if you need them, let me know. But we did have a chamber member pick up one the other day. She couldn't wait to get it out on the lawn. So I do have 2 signs available, 16 North Elm Street, chamber office. I always ask people to call first to make sure I'm there, because I'm in and out with meetings and everything.
I just put an order in for more myself, so they'll be delivered to my office so that we can.
But if you need them,
them.
If you need them, I should have brought them with me so you could have taken them. But because this is a very, very important question. And I was actually very proud of my board when they, gave me the green light to support Bay State Health.
Thank you very much for that. That's fabulous.
Yeah, because we get asked a lot to take positions, and sometimes we just can't. But this one I think this was the right decision.
Thank you.
No, I know it was the right decision. And so we... So the other ballot questions that are not on the ballot. So the chamber, we're going to be having a workshop next year with one of our law firms. That's a chamber member, Scholar and Abbott, on the FMLA, because there were so-called they bargained with changes in that so-called ballot question, and it's really not such a grand bargain. And employers are really going to be taking a hit. Serious hit. I don't know.
I think a bigger problem is the $15 an hour.
That's going to be a hit. At least they did extend the implementation over more
That's another
years.
unintended consequences thing.
I know, but see, this is again where I get frustrated with ballot questions. Should we?
That
really...
wasn't a ballot question. That was coming from the legislature. I had big problems when it came up. But is this coming from a good place? It's just a bad bill.
I think. The number of patients that nurses care for and our ability to make the judgments as to what's needed is a topic that we should be talking about. We really should be. Yeah. I don't think this is the way to deal with it, though.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Coming from a good place, just a bad written bill.
I think there's much more productive, collaborative, respectful ways that nurses can voice their opinions and we can make changes. I've done it at Noble in the 3 years that I've been here, worked with departments, looked at what their acuity levels are, looked at the type of patients that they're caring for, added staff because we needed it. Mm-hmm. And there were outcomes that are now better. They have better outcomes because of it. But I think each individual situation is just that, an individual situation, and looking at what the unit needs are. So
that's the big thing I wanted to get out there was that come from a good place, just not a good bill.
I think that we could handle this in a much more collegial, collaborative way.
Will it force the conversation even if it doesn't pass?
What's that?
Will it force that conversation even if it doesn't pass?
I think that we should be doing that every day because that's the right thing to do for patient care. I've always made decisions what's right for the patient. May not always be a popular decision, but it's the right thing for patient care. And I think that we need to look at that.
Okay.
Great. Michelle, thank you so much for being on Chamber Chatter. It's been a pleasure. Final words, let's get out and vote against. Vote no on ballot question one. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Since I